What's going on, everybody? Mark Conway with the Midwest Horror Network. Thank you so much for clicking on this link for the Nightmares podcast. If you do want to hear just the audio version of this podcast, click the Spotify link below. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Mark Conway with the Nightmares podcast, where we talk about all things horror, whether it be film, television shows, animations, music, or in some cases, fiction and nonfiction. I'm here with my usual suspects, Brandon Rakowski.
Hello.
And of course, Zachary, the Dark Smith, the Darkness Smith.
Mark, you tried. Just stop. You're embarrassing.
I did. I can't do it like you, buddy. You do the nicknames so well. I'm just a failure at life. Anyway, so as in the spirit of the Nightmares podcast, we have one of our lovely guests today. She is the writer of Nightmare Oasis, along with several other, and Nightmare Oasis Part 2, and a couple other great pieces of fiction that we're going to be talking about today at the interview. We have Lacye Lembcke. Thank you so much for being on the Nightmares podcast and hanging out with us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad I can join you guys.
When did writing come into your life, and then when did horror come in your life, or thrillers and things of that nature?
Writings ever since I was a little kid. I would take and just when I was bored and write little stories for my teachers.
Okay.
Just out of sheer bored, just to have something to do. And then horror later on came pretty early in my childhood because I'm a big R.L. Stine fan, even to this day. So I devoured, and I have collector's edition Goosebump books. So, and Fear Street novels, and the newest Fear Street that's coming out. So yeah, that was my first foray into horror, and then later on, watching different types of movies, different types of horror, and then I was really drawn into psychological horror. And that's sort of where horror is for me.
Very nice, very nice. So it's insane. It's insane in how much it's stuck in the zeitgeist. Our last interviewer, interviewee. His name's Poltergeist OD. He's a horror rapper. He actually had a Goosebumps G tattoo on his neck. So he's beyond hardcore when it comes to Goosebumps.
And I love the new movies where Jack Black played R.L. Stine. That was amazing. Goosebumps 2. And then, of course, every kid that I know absolutely loves the Goosebumps series. I've shown many children that series, and they have just loved it. And it's not even that people say, isn't that too scary? I'm like, no scarier than Nightmare Before Christmas. And I know tons of kids who watch that.
That's really cool though that you really stuck with the Goosebumps books. What are some of your favorites?
The Ghost Next Door for sure. Say Cheese and Die is definitely up there in the top 5.
The Ryan Gosling started vehicle.
Yes.
The Ryan Gosling one?
Yeah, that is the Ryan Gosling one. Yes, Zach.
Yes. What is Night of the Living Dummy?
Classic.
With Slappy? Oh, yes. Any of the Slappy ones.
Oh,
anything where a doll comes to life.
That's the one with Hayden Christensen. That's part 3, right?
Yeah, that's the third one.
That was the third one. Yeah.
That's my favorite. Love that one.
It's amazing how many actors started in that show. We were going over a lot of that. Hayden Christensen and Ryan Gosling, and then a couple Catherine Isabel, like a couple different people that started on that show. It's kind of crazy to think about that. And actually, The Ghost Next Door was always one of my favorites.
Yes.
I loved that it was actually able to get a little bit darker than normally, and somebody actually died.
Yes, I know. That was one of the things I really loved about it. He actually touched on real death to a very young audience.
No, 110%. Well, that's awesome. So you said you were always writing from an early age. Was it always scary stories or ghost stories, or did you start with one genre and kind of move into the thriller genre? Because these are very clearly horror. A lot of them are thriller, but there's a lot of horror elements and a lot of ones that are just straight up horror. So I'm just curious about, when did that writing style develop for you?
Oh,
And,
that was early. That was in elementary school. I have my mother to thank for that and her love of whodunits and mysteries.
all
So
right.
I was watching Murder She Wrote, Columbo, Matlock, and so I wrote when I was about maybe 10, 11 years old. I wrote my own murder mystery. Just
Nice.
a little, not even like it didn't even really make any sense, now that I think and look back on it. But I remember it involved a wife pushing a husband off a cliff after an argument. And, then after that, I think I just sort of stuck with that.
Nice, nice. And then they got progressively darker as time went on. And
Yes, I got this insane reaction from my peers and from my teachers that I really enjoyed. And I'm like, oh, they like this. And so I was like, okay, so I'm good at this and I'm just gonna keep going.
the upmanship of that,
Yes.
and I'm assuming it went back and went even further into the college days, in the high school days and the college days and everything
Oh
else.
yeah.
It's got more refined.
I mean, I didn't I got published when I was in high school in it's a student publication called Across These Hills.
Oh,
And
okay.
they feature short stories and poetry from high schoolers all over America. And a
Nice.
couple of my poems got published in there. And I kind of just kind of kept going from that. And I thought I was going to be a poet for a while. I had too much to say that would just fit in a poem.
Yeah, though a lot of the short stories in the second Nightmare Oasis book do have that sort of poem structure to them. So I
Yes,
still
and
see that influence in your work.
oh yeah, and some of them actually used to be song lyrics that fit better as a short
Oh,
story.
oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, like Back Alley Sally was originally supposed to go on an LP, but then I decided to actually write it out as a short story.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so did you have some like musical background as well, or just songwriting in particular?
More like just lyrics. I'm not a very good songwriter. Like I don't really I can't really read music and I don't really hear it in my head or anything like that, but I know what the song is supposed to sound like, if that makes sense.
Oh, all right. Well, that makes sense. Did you ever do any collaboration with anybody that was in the music world or anything like that, or anybody that writes music to maybe push that, or is it just something you just left alone?
It was more like something I do just as a hobby.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, if anybody ever did, and I can write, that was one thing that really helps me push my genres, is writing lyrics for different, especially music I don't listen to. So I like that it pushes my vocabulary, my skills, and all that.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So what was it like getting that award when you were still in high school, or that being published and when you were still in high school?
I lost my mind, man. Like, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer, and then there I was inside of a book, and I was ecstatic and thrilled.
I think a couple weeks ago we all talked about like our first time of seeing our own work for the first time, and it was an interesting experience
For all of
yeah,
us.
for all of us. I mean, like just I mean, not only just seeing work that we had did together, but remembering back when we had saw our first work. Zach has a copy of something somewhere in a safe that he's buried deep underground.
I've seen it.
The I probably will never see it. It's in the same building as the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh,
With all the other stuff. Isn't that right, Zach?
You will never see it.
And then and my first like film acting experience is buried to the algorithms of YouTube somewhere. But Zach has a hard copy. So it's somewhere. But yeah, it's always cool to see that first little bit of success and seeing it.
And that was it was called Across the Hills, you said?
Across These Hills.
Across These Hills.
And it's under my maiden name, which is McConnell.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. The and then what were those? And just as a brief description, what were those two stories about?
One was a poem, I think it was titled Why, and the other one I don't even really remember. I graduated back in 2004, and that was published, I think, 1999.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So it was a little bit of a hop and a skip
It's
ago.
been a minute. I know I look young, but I'm not as young as it people think.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. The so and that's actually really cool that you kind of stuck with that. So the with in pertaining to horror though, it seems like, I know it's kind of a redundant question, but why did you stick with it? I know that you said you explore other genres, but is it just because you love horror and you've continued
Yeah.
to love it? Okay, fair enough. I was just
I,
curious. Hey,
and people, they're like, well, you write this, or you also listen to this, or you also do this. I'm like, at I will always I may traverse different roads, but I have one path, and it is very dark.
and bloody. The
Yes,
very dark and bloody. The
It is the
which
best
I
path
always
to
filled
see.
be
with
on.
refrigerators and swing sets.
Nice. Yeah, I caught that. The that hiding place was that damn good.
I liked that one.
Um, that story has scared the crap out of Brian K. Morris. I'm sure you know who that is, right? Rising Tide Publishing.
No, I don't know who
I
that is.
recognize the name.
Okay, yes. So, Shameless Friend Promotion, Brian K. Morris, and he has a horror book called Santa Stein. You guys would absolutely adore it.
Okay. The
Yes.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's the first book that comes up if you Google him.
nice.
Yeah. And
Hey, nothing wrong with
I'll
shameless plugs.
I mention him a lot. He's more my mentor, my guide through my journey as an author. And so I need to give him his props and credit where it's due.
Has he been at any of the horror conventions at all?
I know he's been at Dark History and Horror, and I know he's been at a couple of other of the scarier ones. You can sometimes find him hanging out with like Ron Fitzgerald or Kadrosha O'Carroll. A lot of big names like that. He hangs around them a lot.
Nice. We'll have to get him on one of these days. The
Yeah, I feel like I recognize his picture as well, but I can't place it.
Yeah, you've seen him. I know you have. If you were at the con with me, you probably just didn't recognize him.
Yeah, that definitely is. So just talking about your journey. So how did that relationship start with the two of you? Because I'm always interested in hearing people's influences and their mentors and things like that. So how did the two of you kind of get together?
So Brian is a friend of a friend of a friend.
All right.
We met when I was not too far out of college, and I had decided to work on my web series, my comedy, Dope Bunny and Clyde. And it's not really horror in it. There's some horror aspects. There's Halloween episodes and that kind of stuff. But I brokered a deal with Nathan Bonner, who is an illustrator artist, to do the art for it and stuff like that. And I write the script and give the money and stuff like that. Nathan introduced me to Brian K. Morris as I started my journey into writing more books, not just scripts and lyrics and things of that nature, as I tried to actually sit out and formulate a book. And so he's a godsend to everybody in the indie publishing industry.
Very, very cool. Very nice. So I know that, and that's an interesting thing too about just talking about the difference between, long form and short form. So I was curious, why did you particularly stick with, short form on a lot of these stories? Because they are, I mean, some of them are only 2 or 3 paragraphs. So I'm curious about when, if ever, did you decide to go to more of a long form type deal, or are you always going to stay there, or why did it start there?
I actually wrote longer form when I very first started out, but my husband, who does a lot of my beta reading and stuff like that, because I'm, poor and can't afford to pay people to do stuff like that. as they should, righteously be done to read my stuff. So he has his attention span, people with attention disorders. So everything has to be and right to the point. So, he can't get distracted. He's right there and then the story's done. And so I had to write it to where he could read it so he could tell me if it was good or not. So now, because of this, I now have this small, unique following every time I go places for short stories of people who have ADD, ADHD, autism, other sorts of being on the spectrum. And they say that they like the short story form and they like that it's a clear picture in a short couple of sentences.
I think I really appreciate that. Coming from being a kid, that had major ADD back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Okay.
Still do.
It still sticks around a little bit. Shut up, Zach. I got it somewhat managed. So that's kind of cool. I mean, are you ever planning on going into long form at some point, or is this a short story kind of your niche and your thing?
Well, the longest story that I have written right now is Den of the Misty Vales. That one, you can see it's not very thick at all. It's still on the shorter side, but it's not a short story like the other ones are. I am trying to write a novel right now. It is a horror novel titled From the River. And it's loosely based on my time growing up in my small hometown and a vicious murder that takes place there. And a writer who has to go home to tend to her mother's funeral has to uncover the truth, Not that I like horrors or whodunits or anything like that.
Yeah, no, not like anything horrific happens in small towns ever.
Absolutely.
That never happens. Ever. Not psychotic killers, nor murderous clowns, nor any other supernatural beings out there. That never happens.
I don't know what you're looking at.
I know.
Can't we have the murder clowns back instead of COVID? I will take murder clowns over COVID any day.
Oh, remember those? Those are fun. When the clowns would just come in from the woods. It's a fun time.
I miss clowns. They scared people, and it was great.
Why are you looking at me?
Maybe because you starred in a killer clown movie.
I did actually. When did you get the idea? Because Brandon and Zach and I think we'll go through, one or two of our favorites. But so when did this, start for you, specifically the Nightmare series? Because obviously you liked it so much you wrote two. So I'm curious on where did that start for you?
So the actual Nightmare series in general, I was sort of loosely writing little horror stories here and there. And then I just sort of kept getting inspired for them. And then I kept writing and before I knew it, I had 10 stories written. And I'm like, well, these are actually pretty good. And so I was like, well, if I wait around to, publish the perfect book, I won't publish anything. I'm never happy with the way anything is structured or the way anything comes out. I'm my own worst critic.
Oh, we all are.
So I have to just be like, look, they all say they like it, and I trust them.
No, I hear you on that. So a couple of things. I think the one I did enjoy a lot, and I was talking to Brandon about this was
this is probably tied as both Mark's and mine favorite from the two books.
Was Skin Tight. I really dug that one. It was interesting. And actually Brandon made up a really good point. She said it's kind of like
it kind of felt like if the creature from Jeepers Creepers was an actual human being and not a creature.
So I'm curious, what that's a rather specific one. So I'm curious, where you where that came up for you, and and if you got any fun stories for that particular story, or any of the inspiration they came up with for that particular story.
This is really just loosely based off of Ed Gein. I don't know really like how to. I like serial killer. Like it to me, it is urban legend and folklore, and I love urban legends and folklore, and they are part of our pop culture zeitgeist, whether we like it or not. And so, Ed Gein being one of the more prolific and horrific ones was sort of a loose inspiration. Buffalo Bill. I love Silence of the Lambs. All those sort of took place and had a place inside my head. And then the only real hard part was kind of coming up with all the different people's names.
Okay.
That was like the only weird hard part for me, because I had this picture in my head of a guy living in this dank basement with like just a closet full of human suits he just put on to feel whenever he wanted to feel. And of course, Norman Bates, I love Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock. And so, at the end where it's Goodnight Mother.
Nice.
That was his first skin that he, chemically peeled off and saved.
Yeah, the no, I dig that. The I think Brendan and I both enjoyed it. We were talking about it on the way in. It was kind of, it was a unique kind of take. The other one I really enjoyed though was the one we were kind of joking about in the beginning, which was a really short one about the fridge with the kid hiding in the fridge.
Again, he and I are on the same page here.
We tend to be. It tends to happen that way.
It's scary how often it happens.
Yeah, it is. It's either literally me and him or him and my roommate. Are often on the same page. I think Brandon is like linked into everybody. But yeah, I really dug that one because it was short. It was to the point. It kind of like, it was weird. It was creepy, but it kind of made me smile at the same time.
If I'm not mistaken, that was the one right after Skin Tight.
I believe so.
And so I got the book right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Right after.
Yeah, so it was like a nice, short little, darkly humorous interlude after a really dark story. So it's not just a really good, short, little humorous story, but it was really well placed within the book as well.
And actually, I was going to ask you a question about that. Do you structure this to have kind of a pace and kind of a crescendo and a kind of a beat by beat in the book, or is it kind of just throw whatever at the wall and hope it sticks?
The first one, I didn't really. My publisher, she just sort of put it in there and didn't let me see how it was, and I went over it, and I liked the way that she did it. She made a good ebb and flow into it, and I like that part. And this one seems to be a really hot topic. I actually rewrote it for the next book I have coming out, Tales from the Bonfire. But that one strikes a chord, especially with women, because that's one of their biggest fears. And so I tend to get a lot of almost repulsion from women about that story, and then an almost comical fascination from men.
Yeah, I think I don't know, I guess men have a darker sense of humor, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, also as founders of Midwest Horror Network, we are kind of sick to begin with.
Yeah, there is that.
Don't say.
And hell, we're in good company.
But of course, Brandon and Zach have. What's some funny? Zach is just dark. Brandon is kind of funny, creepy, dark.
Until you get to know him, me, and then
it's just dark.
Yeah,
then it's just darkness. Zach is dark until a cat's around. Then he's a 5-year-old.
Oh yeah, I have rescue kitties, and I'll have one up on my shoulder. There's one by my feet, one on my knees. There's somebody somewhere.
Somebody's everywhere. So that's actually kind of cool that she kind of chose the placement, because it helps going from skin suits to a darkly humored type of thing. The other one I thought was kind of cool though was the one with like entrance to purgatory or hell.
Oh, Theater of the Damned.
Yeah, Theater of the Damned. I thought that was really I thought that was interesting. So is that your personal view of how hell might be, or is that something?
No, I'm I'm actually an atheist, but I was raised religiously, so I do have an understanding of, heaven, hell, was devout and everything like that. Good little Sunday school girl, and no. That's usually how it starts, though.
It always starts there. I'm Catholic on paper somewhere.
Exactly,
It's in a file cabinet somewhere.
Yeah, but this was just I don't know. I was thinking about other people have to die at that same time. Where do you go? What happens? And then you're just wandering around completely clueless and lost. You just wander into some horrific chamber or some terrible demon is going to eat you. And then that's it.
It's the DMV with demons.
I like that my stories, in the horror genre, I don't really have heroes. I don't have anybody going on epic journeys or overcoming or the power of friendship or stuff like that when it comes to the horror and the thriller stuff. But
I like that. You have some kind of through line with everything you do. So I got to ask why though. I'm curious on why specifically, because everybody has their own style. When it comes to heroes and villains and through lines and moral ambiguity. So I'm just curious. Why did you decide that you don't necessarily want a hero in any of your stories?
Heroes imply hopefulness, hope for the future, and I don't want anybody to have a hope for this kind of future.
You'd rather it just not be the future altogether.
Yeah, because when you go into stories like the Swing Set and Like Us and that dealing with existential crises and the thought of being alone in the universe and what it means to be human and alone in the universe.
And you can't know happiness without despair anyway.
Exactly.
You can't know those heightened emotions without the lowest of emotions.
And also, not everybody gets to be a hero. Sometimes you're just the townsfolk, and sometimes you just get to be the townsfolk that's eaten by the dragon. Sorry, bro.
The B player. Somebody's always the red uniform in Star Trek.
This is just all stories from the NPC point of view.
There you go.
Okay. I bet Zach loves that.
Genius.
No, I dig that. There's always something, though, and also too, a lot of people, villains, especially with villains, a lot of people, most villains don't realize they're villains. Everybody's a hero of their own story.
Absolutely amazing. It's actually something I really love about psychology is people committing atrocities will have absolutely no idea that they're doing that.
They've already justified it in their head.
Yeah, they've already completely justified whatever harm that they are doing as completely okay, and then they just go on about their merry life. And it's a defense mechanism. We justify it so we can go on with our lives.
Isn't that a weird thing with horror fans in general? We justify, enjoying watching, all these, the Freddys and the Jasons and the Leatherfaces of the world, and they're all awful. they're terrible things and everything else, and they do terrible things to other human beings, but we find enjoyment in it.
Yeah. I love it, and it's one of the reasons why I love stuff like Family Guy and Rick and Morty and things of that nature that are just of the absurd. That's what those are. They're just of the most absurd, grotesque. What's the weirdest possible thing we can think of to have Jason do to these campers and whatnot, and not only just what you can think of, but what you have the technology to do at the time.
It's really, really true. And that's, something funny, and that's, and anything in literature, the best villains are often the ones that you almost agree with.
One of my absolute favorite villains ever. I don't know if any of you ever watched Star Trek, but Deep Space Nine series, Gul Dukat.
Never watched Deep Space. Never. I stopped at Voyager.
he is the epitome of that guy who doesn't know he's a villain. He completely justifies his command in this war because less people died under his under his command than under previous ones. And I'm like, people still died in the war, dude. People still died in the war that you were in.
I'm the lesser of two evils. You must, the lesser of two evils don't make a right.
And that is why I can kind of I see a lot of this in Star Wars where people, if they have to serve the Empire, they at least try to mitigate the damage as much as they can.
Yeah, some of my, my favorite villains ever in literature were always, people it was, it's either with villains, it's either like you almost agree with them, or they're just so evil it's really entertaining to watch them. Like Iago in Othello, still one of my favorite villains of all time. Just the ultimate monkey wrench in people's plans. All it takes is one thing to be pulled off the conveyor belt to fuck up an entire life. So, and then and the same thing with the Joker. I actually make a lot of parallels between the two of them. They're both, manipulators of anarchy. And they're really fucking entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And I think this is one of the reasons why people like going back to serial killers is their entertainment.
It's true.
They like to read the stories and see when they do paintings and stuff like that. And I've actually, seen, and held murderabilia up close.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've held a picture drawn by Richard Ramirez.
The Night Stalker. We were literally just talking about him the other day on a podcast.
Yeah, he used to just doodle hours and hours and hours and hours in his cell, and he just gave, copies of his work away. And it was just a doodle of the Green Goblin, and I'm holding it. It's not in a case or nothing. It's the paper, holding it in my hand. I'm like, it was so surreal because I know what he did. I know he's not a good guy, but holy shit, it's the Night Stalker.
That's amazing.
I think that there's an interesting thing about that. I think the reason why people love horror movies, why they love roller coasters, why they love serial killers, and why they love gangsters,
mm-hmm.
is because it's the closest that we get to death without actually experiencing death. It's death without the consequences of death.
Mm-hmm.
It's without the consequences of pain or suffering or anything like that. It's to get close to the precipice just to see him just a little bit. That's why people glamorize serial killer. I mean, that's why Ted Bundy was a sex symbol in the 70s.
Yeah. This newest kid, he's getting love letters, and Chris Watts was getting love letters, and Richard Ramirez got love letters, and fucking Charlie Manson, he got married. The lady tried to marry him.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him. They probably wouldn't let him. They're like, Charlie, no, you're not doing that.
They were all set to let him do it, but it turns out she was trying to scam him into signing a whole bunch of documents that gives her all the rights to his shit after he dies. And
oh, okay. Well, I mean, that makes more sense than being actually attracted to a serial killer.
Real, I know, right? If it wasn't a scam, I was gonna be horrified.
Yeah, I remember I was watching a documentary on and don't get me wrong, I'm not an overly sensitive person by any means, but I was watching the court case, footage from the court case of Ted Bundy. There's literally one of the women who survived his attack. Her entire face was busted up, and she was giving a testimony about her experience. And there's literally 20 women in the crowd listening to this. And they interviewed him on the way out, and they're like, he just doesn't seem like the type. He's too cute. He just doesn't.
All the women who said he changed. It
was okay. Okay. And I was like, this is fucking insane. This is beyond insane. Oh God, but that's what it is though. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, that's Martin Scorsese made a career out of people's fascinations for gangsters.
Mm-hmm.
They're sociopaths.
Yep.
The killing is their business. At least they kill for a logical reason, like money.
There were gangsters who did go into it just, you know, as a way to make money, and people like Al Capone and Babyface Nelson, when they robbed banks, would actually grab people's mortgage papers and burn them and free them of their debt.
Yeah, that happened a lot. But there were also some guys though too that were genuine sociopaths.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely. You know,
Anthony Spilotro, who was Joe Pesci's character in Casino, was a genuine psychopath. And a lot of times what would happen is in the neighborhoods, they would just recognize these kids that were psychopaths, and they'd be like, all right, we clearly know that these people are going to be psychopaths. We might as well put them in the organization just so at least
good use.
Yeah, put it to good use, and at least like give them a path and everything else, because they're going to end up being serial killers anyway. Yeah. They might as well not kill innocent people.
Victor's ass.
Well, yeah, exactly. It just, yeah, I think people are fascinated with danger. And I think that's why they're fascinated with things that they can't have, and including danger. Tapped into something there with getting people close to danger in a very simple way. Through small short stories, but in accomplishing the goal, which is pretty cool. Zach, I know Brandon and I were on the same page about our stuff. So were there any of the stories that you saw that caught your eye?
Yeah, there's a few actually. So one I just want to compliment you on, because I thought this one was pretty genius. It's cadaver dogs. Like, I've never thought of hiding a body that way. Just let's bury the body like 8 feet under, and then put dogs on top of it, so that way when the police come, they just think it's the dogs. But that was genius.
Thank you.
Yeah. But the other two that I like specifically is the one you've mentioned a few times now, the swing set one. I thought that one was pretty philosophical, and also the Should Death Die Also. Those two specifically I thought were really great. So
I was actually lucky enough to get an original picture from Brad Moore for Should Death Die Also.
It's a good picture.
Yes, he drew that specifically. He drew that one, and he drew the surgical one in Anatomy Lesson. And then Nathan Bonner, he did the illustration for Facility 52.
Nice. So do you want to? I would love to hear some of the inspiration behind some of these, some of Zach's favorites. And how did you get some of these ideas, especially the, burying the body 8 feet and then the dogs above it. That is some level of genius. I've only seen it in one other place, something similar. But yeah. So I'm curious about how you got some of those inspirations.
The inspirations just sort of pop up wherever I go to look for stuff.
They're just kind of random thoughts that pop in your head?
Random thoughts, or, I'll be driving back from the store and pass by the playground and notice, there's no kids on the swing set. Or, I'm reaching down to pet my cat goodnight and I feel another one that I didn't realize was there. And then different little things pop
just
into my
simple
head.
Things.
Yeah, just the simple things. And then I usually end up with a tail wags the dog scenario where I have the ending and then I have to just write the rest of it.
That's how Chris Nolan writes. And his brother. They know the ending first and then they trace it back.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you know where you're gonna end up, it's pretty easy to it's probably easier to find how you get there in the first place. So it's a pretty good way of writing overall. As long as you know the destination, the rest of the journey can probably come a little bit easier. That's really cool. There's a lot of good stuff here. I think that there's it's really good. Brendan, did you have any other questions or any other comments on something?
I had one more I wanted to mention. That was Daddy Bear.
Oh, Daddy Bear.
Yeah, that one felt like a Stephen King story almost. and just how like this man in prison for murdering his wife uses a bear that can record voices to essentially communicate with his daughter. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, that one I received a lot of compliments on for the ingenuity, and I actually got the idea of it. Like if somebody were to really go in and mess with like a Teddy Ruxpin,
Yeah.
you know, get it to like extend its video, you know, extend its audio recording to keep playing, you know, and all the darker messages he sends her keep coming out.
Yeah, like that was one that I thought like someday I would actually really like to see like an expanded version, like maybe not a full novel, but maybe like a novella that goes beyond the 3 pages and lets us be in those moments with the girl when she's with the bear, and really like that is a story I would like to return to in some other capacity someday.
So that's his version of asking you to write a novella for that story.
Okay, I'm gonna mark this page, and I'll come back to Daddy Bear in a short time.
You know, he's gonna do that little more the polite East Coast roundabout thing that he does. The Pennsylvania country kid. You know, I really liked it. I'd like to see it that way one of these days. You know, Brandon, just ask the lady what you want.
Randomly 5 years from now, when we can be at conventions again, we're gonna be at one of her tables, and there it's gonna be Daddy Bear expanded version. Oh, okay.
Well, there you go.
Just because of this one time.
God, I love those. So you know what? I didn't want to ask another question. You know, how did you get involved in the whole convention circuit? And how's that been working out for you? You know, obviously we can't do it now, but I mean, the past couple of years, you know, how did you get involved? You know, has that, you know, have you had the opportunity to meet some new people? And you know, obviously outside of us, you know, how's that been working out?
So I was very fortunate to get in on the con circuit when I did, because now there is none. So I only got 2, you know, glorious years, and I want more. Give me back my cons. And but I got in there with Brian and Nathan, because Nathan actually, when Eclipse Con happened at SIU, he was in charge of that, and I vendored there for my very first one. And I kept coming back the second year and the third year, and then, you know, if we have another year, I'll be fingers crossed. But excuse me, that was my very first one. And then I didn't know where to look online, so I would just go to different ones that you hear word of mouth. You know, if I could afford the table fee and afford the gas and the hotel, because there's no way in hell my husband will let me sleep in my car. So I have to pay for the hotel and all that good stuff. And then, you know, and as long as I can do it, then I go down there and I sell my wares and I do the best I can at it.
Nice.
And I sell everything down there. You know, I have all my books. Zin of the Misty Veils, I didn't have at any of the last conventions because I published it during COVID.
Mm.
So yeah, this was my COVID creation. I had been working on it for a very long time, and I decided, well, time to finish it and publish it, so I can feel like I've accomplished something during this pandemic. Because I mean, like a lot of other people, you know, I lost my actual job, so I just that's it. It's just my art now that I sell.
Hey, you know, that's the best way to go. It's the best way to go. You know, I was going to ask too. You know, that you had your second year around. Were you starting to see, you know, more people swing by and say, "Hey, I love your stuff," and were you meeting more people? You know, how was the reaction of some new fans?
I was either the scary story lady or I was the bunny lady. So.
Nice, the bunny lady of the scares. You know what? We didn't really get to ask you about that. I mean, I saw a little bit of the show that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
so I know it's not necessarily horror, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, but I would love to hear you expand upon that show because it is. I mean, it's pop culture oriented. So
Yeah, it's Dope Bunny and Clive is the story of a ne'er-do-well rapper who's in his early 20s, and he finds a stuffed bunny at a yard sale who's alive. We kind of go into it, we kind of touch on it a little bit later in the series. He tries to keep him hidden from his frenemy, a girl he has to kind of be friends with because she's friends with the girl he wants to be his girlfriend. And so he finds this toy bunny, comes to life, and starts wreaking havoc all in his world. He's trying to make ends meet, and him and the girl that he likes, who I voice, work at this barbecue place together. And it's just a go nowhere job for exposition, and it's called Angry Willie's Barbecue Barn, and Angry Willie is a featured character.
Nice.
And so it's all about their journey and learning about different people, and lots of slapstick humor and bad puns and just sort of dumb jokes. I don't know if it's to be commentary or anything, but
just fun.
Yeah, it's a fun show where you can poke at it and stuff like that. And I mean, shoot, if I make it one season on that and picked up by any place, I'd let them butcher it for whatever amount of money they want to give me.
Give up that artistic integrity for a big old bag of cash.
If FXX wants to take this off my hands for a cool mill, okay.
It's never just a mill; it's always a cool mill. It's because there is nothing cooler than $1 million. Actually, there is $2 million. But Brandon's the pun master. If you listen to any of our podcasts, almost all of them start with a pun.
And besides, Mark, didn't you know $1 million isn't cool anymore? It's $1 billion that's cool.
Oh yeah, that's true. According to Justin Timberlake in The Social Network, I know where the line's from.
I haven't seen that movie in years. I don't know why that one.
Who knows? Anyway, we literally did an entire October special where we reviewed every single Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode. And it was every day in October, and Brandon nearly made 31 puns in every single one of those episodes.
Not all of them,
but a lot.
A good deal of them.
A good deal of them. So all right. Well, hey, so I wanted to ask too, what's in the future for you? What's on the horizon? What are you working on? What are you proud of that's up around the bend?
Well, right. I hate this feeling because it feels like I'm spinning my wheels when I'm working on so many projects at once and I can't really go anywhere. So right now, I've taken to working online and stuff like that to fund all my projects because I have a children's book that I need to get illustrated so I can get that out. It's called I Want to Live at the Zoo, and the talented Candace Camilleri is going to illustrate it for me. I have a comic coming out that is a horror thriller comic. But again, I need, it's really just funding, but when you lose, from COVID. So I have a GoFundMe for the comic that, I post that up on my Dope Bunny page and on my personal Facebook page and my Twitter and that from time to time.
What's the horror comic about? If you don't mind sharing a little bit about, because we're all comic book fans here. Brandon bought me Green Arrow year one for Christmas, so I have to read that. So yeah, we're all comic fans. There's a whole stack of it like right on the other side of this camera. So
next time we do an interview, I'll show you my geek room where all of our comics and stuff are. So the comic is about this hapless nobody. His name is Silas Slaughter. He works as an insurance guy. That's it. He's just a pencil pusher. Well, one day he's coming home and he meets this girl, takes her back, and he can't perform. So she laughs at him.
Oh.
And this triggers him something, So, of course, he up and kills her, as one is wont to do in that situation. And the comics just span him slowly losing his mind as he, tries to go about going to work.
It's the whiskey dick murders.
Sounds awesome.
The whiskey dick murders.
The whiskey dick murders. That's what happens when you drink too much. You can't perform. That sounds like a really bad 60-minute special. It's he terrorized the women, because he couldn't perform on the whiskey dick murders tonight on 60 Minutes.
Oh my God, when they caught him, he'd be so mad.
just let me finish before you arrest me.
I swear, don't look.
Could you turn that spotlight somewhere else?
He's having performance anxiety.
That's fantastic. The hostage negotiator can't talk to him because he doesn't have both hands free.
I'm not doing it.
I don't get paid enough for this.
You gotta look him in the eye.
God.
Hostage negotiation. I request eye contact denied. I could imagine the chief of police calling the mayor, telling 3 hostage negotiators already quit this month or quit this week. We can't find anybody else. The top agency put up
won't
whiskey
send
dick signal and it's just a limp.
Now he went from a serial killer to a superhero. It's a limp dick
This
boy.
took a turn.
This sounds like a job for a limp dick boy.
It's Limp Dick Man and his sidekick Blue Balls.
Wow, this interview took a turn off a cliff.
See, this is where I really get going.
I am a child. I have the maturity level of a 12-year-old, and I don't care.
I know better. I am at heart a 13-year-old boy. All I want is Cheetos and my anime and my comics and stuff like that. So I feel I'm right there in the same boat.
I can respect that. I can respect that.
Don't let the dress and the makeup fool you.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare. That's awesome. I'm glad. And then, was there anything else that you had up on the horizon as well that you wanted to feature?
I have. I don't know how racy your podcast can get, so I don't know.
We just talked about Limp Dick Boy. I think and Blue Balls. I think we're pretty much past any point of no return at this point.
We have no shame.
So I have actually started my foray into modeling. I've done modeling before, and so I have an Instagram for it now where I have, superhero sets. I'm doing a calendar featuring all of my rescue animals, and all of the proceeds for that are going to go towards this one animal clinic that I used to work with back in Marion. And then I'm going to make a coffee table book of some of the more elegant, more tasteful photos. So that I have my Instagram. It's called Raven Nightmare 1, and Nightmare is KNIGHT. So see, even there, I'm still, it's still all, dark eyeliner and black nail polish.
Nice, very cool, very, very nice. And of course, all the proceeds going to charity is always a good thing. That's always a good thing. I'm
happy when people give me money to, fund more projects, because it means that I can give more. And so that was, one of the things I did with Dope Bunny and Clive was I sold bunny ears, and all of the things that I would decorate them with came from the thrift store that supported the shelter.
Nice. I like that. That's really cool.
That's what I like being able to do with my art, no matter if it's from my books or my OnlyFans or anything like that. Whatever I make, I want to put back into my art and make it better, and then be able to give more to, to the cat shelter that I want to give to, or to the food program I want to give to, or anything in my community to make things better.
Nice. I love that. The trifecta is doing what you love to do, making money at it, and helping people at the same time.
Exactly.
Those are the trifectas. That's
Isn't that what every superhero aims to do?
It's very, very true. It's also a lovely love letter to capitalism. Anyway, which I love. I just gotta stick that in there. I'm very pro business, so I appreciate that. So usually what I do too is to wrap it up. I do a question of the podcast where we kind of do a round table, and I kind of ask everybody different questions. So this is more of a, obviously you being a author. So what was the first horror literature that came into your life, that maybe had an influence, or maybe it didn't? Maybe it was just something cool that you remember, that you saw. So usually I have my guests the guests go first. However, if you do have the right to pass it, and then we can always come back to you last.
As for literature, I would probably say Edgar Allan Poe.
The earliest, really? Okay.
And his little short stories, grabbed my attention.
Very nice.
I love those.
Really?
So I'd say that was the first piece of, to go along with like classic literature of horror that I read was probably Edgar Allan Poe.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. B-Man.
Besides Goosebumps,
I was Goosebumps is on the table too.
Yeah, I was like, so we already covered the Goosebumps.
We've talked about that not just on this episode of the podcast, but numerous times before. Other than that, there were these two illustrated books that my mother had for me back when I was a little kid, and they were for Dracula and Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. And I specifically remember the way Dracula looked in that book. I can't remember who published it, but he was like this green skin, like it's a really detailed green skinned, really horrifying looking vampire. And so those books were probably my first, other than Goosebumps, my first foray into horror literature.
Nice. Zach?
Probably Jaws. It's one of the few horror novels I've actually read, and hell, one of the few novels I've actually read. So there's that.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's also based off my favorite movie of all time, so there's that as well.
I can dig that.
I thought your favorite movie of all time was West Side Story.
I'm gonna stab you the next time I see you, which is like, I don't know, 10 minutes from now.
Less than that, or Chud 2.
Chud 2's amazing.
or Jeepers Creepers Part 3. The movie that Brandon refuses to acknowledge exists. I hate to say it. It's it was I know we beat it to death, but it was Goosebumps. There was, I think it was Night of the Living Dummy. The first one was one of the first ones I ever read. And then also too,
the one where Slappy was not the villain.
Correct. It was a long, so many wins ago. And then also there were a few other like murder mysteries that were really cool, and a couple other like really like kids short story horror oriented things that they had. I remember like I got picked up something from like the book fair. And it was some random book, just filled with a couple different, kids, scary short stories. And it was kind of cool. I remember it being cool. I'm like, I feel like I'm reading something that I probably shouldn't, which was kind of cool. The same way I felt about Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark. You felt like, you were kind of getting away from with something. And, it was cool. It was cool to read those short stories and then try to figure out the mysteries of everything that was going on. And it was cool. It got me on the path that I'm at and where I eventually landed today. So it's funny to go back and realize all that stuff. But I did and I did get to Poe very early too. I would think I was like in middle school, and I always love Poe. But some of them I always more appreciated Poe as dark rather than horror oriented.
Okay.
Except for like with one very glaring exception of the Telltale Heart.
That's what I was about to say.
Like that one I was like deeply effective. Like it wasn't like
the Pit and the Pendulum for me.
What was one?
Pit and the Pendulum.
Okay, yeah. That's a great one actually. It was that, and I didn't feel that emotion more deeply until I read Macbeth. And then and the wife saying that I have I'm washing my hands and I can't get blood off of my hands and there's nothing there. Like that kind of ideology of not getting rid of the psyche of murder was always fascinating to me, and those are two things that stuck with me a lot. Being more about the psychological than the actual horror itself. Those are definitely ones that stuck with me. So all right. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Nightmares Podcast. Brandon, take us out, and then at the end we'll toss it over to you, Lacey, to give your little spiel about where they can find you.
Yep. Yes, as Mark said, thank you for listening to this episode of the Nightmares Podcast. You can listen to all of our previous episodes wherever podcasts are available. Also, be sure to look us up on social media at Midwest Horror Network on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and
Slasher.
And of course, Lacey, is there any social media that you would like to plug before we leave our audience for the day?
So you can find me under Lacye Lembcke on Twitter, when I'll post a lot about my writing stuff there, my processes, breakthroughs, things like that I go through. Little happier things on my Twitter. My Facebook is it's filled with promos and everything like that. Dope Bunny and Clive has their own Facebook page if you just want to be there for the cartoons. You can find all of my books on Amazon, and you can find me on Instagram.
Thank you so much. And of course, we'll put all those links below. And if you are checking this out on YouTube, go ahead and smash that like button, stab that subscribe, and press that little dingy bell to be notified every time we drop amazing content on the Midwest Horror Network channel. And if you are listening on a streaming podcast service, press the follow button to also be notified every time we drop a new episode. Thank you so much, Lacey, for being on the Nightmares Podcast. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.